Ukraine aims to encircle Bakhmut as Russia says it captures city. Ukraine said on Sunday that its forces were still advancing around the edges of Bakhmut, aiming to encircle the ruined eastern city after Moscow congratulated the Wagner private army and Russian troops for capturing it. Russia said on Saturday it had completely taken Bakhmut, which, if confirmed, would mark an end to the longest and bloodiest battle of the 15-month war. Russian President Vladimir Putin praised his regular troops and the Wagner Group. On Sunday, however, a top Ukrainian general said Kiev's forces still controlled what he accepted was an insignificant part of Bakhmut, although that would allow them to enter the city when the situation changed. General Alexander Syrsky said in a Telegram post that Kiev's troops were advancing on Russian forces in the suburbs and getting closer to a tactical encirclement of the city, formerly home to 70,000 people. Syrsky, the commander of Ukraine's ground forces, said on Sunday he had visited frontline positions near Bakhmut, where fighting has raged for more than 9 months. Syrsky's assertion that Ukrainian forces were continuing their advance along the flanks of the city was echoed by Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar. Our forces have taken the city in a semi-encirclement, which gives us the opportunity to destroy the enemy. The enemy has to defend himself in the part of the city he controls, Maliar said on Telegram. Ukrainian troops were still defending industrial and infrastructure facilities and had claimed part of the overlooking heights, Maliar said. In the past 24 hours, the Russian offensive around Bakhmut has not let up, including airstrikes on the city and the village of Ivanivsky on its western approaches, said a statement by the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Later on Sunday, Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin said in an audio message on Telegram that his group's job was done and his forces would leave the conflict zone within days. Wagner today captured no territory. We have captured all the territory we promised to capture, right up to the last centimeter, Prigozhin said. As we stated yesterday, we are handing over our positions to Russia's defense ministry, and on the 25th of May, we are leaving the conflict zone. Bakhmut has no strategic value according to military analysts, although Moscow has said that capturing it would be a stepping stone towards advancing deeper into the industrial region of Donbass it claims to have annexed from Ukraine. Readers could not verify the battlefield reports by either side. Zelensky compares Bakhmut to ruined Hiroshima. Over the past week, Ukrainian forces have made their most rapid gains for 6 months on Bakhmut's northern and southern flanks, with Russia acknowledging some setbacks for its troops. Kiev says its aim has been to draw Russian forces from elsewhere on the front into the city, to inflict high casualties there and weaken Moscow's defensive line elsewhere, ahead of a planned major Ukrainian counteroffensive. U.S. President Joe Biden said Russia had suffered more than 100,000 casualties in Bakhmut, the destruction of which Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky compared to the U.S. World War II atomic bomb attack on Hiroshima in Japan. I'll tell you openly, photographs of ruined Hiroshima absolutely remind me of Bakhmut and other similar settlements. Nothing left alive, all the buildings ruined, he said as he attended a Group of 7 summit in the Japanese city on Sunday. Bakhmut has not been captured by the Russian Federation as of today. There are no 2 or 3 interpretations of this, he told reporters. In his nightly video address on Sunday aboard an aircraft, Zelensky said, "The world hears our position. Defense, security guarantees, the recovery of all our territories and all our people, justice, the implementation of our peace plan." Taking Bakhmut, which Russia refers to by its Soviet-era name of Artyomovsk, would represent Moscow's first big victory in the conflict in more than 10 months. The battle for Bakhmut has shown a deepening split between Wagner, which has recruited thousands of convicts from Russian prisons, and the regular Russian military. For 2 weeks, Prigozhin has been issuing daily video and audio messages denouncing Russia's military leadership, often in expletive-laden rants. Leaders of the world's richest democracies at the G7 summit said they would not back down from supporting Ukraine. Zelensky, who held a private meeting with Biden in Hiroshima, said he was confident Kiev would receive F-16 fighter jets from the West after months of lobbying for the planes. Biden said F-16s would not have helped Ukrainian forces with regard to Bakhmut, but could make a big difference in terms of being able to deal with what is coming down the road. Ukraine denies fall of Bakhmut, says advancing in suburbs. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Sunday that Bakhmut was not occupied by Moscow, while the head of Russia's Wagner mercenary group insisted his fighters had taken control of the eastern city to the last centimeter. Kiev's military said it was hanging on to a small part of the city and said its troops were advancing on its flanks. Bakhmut, a salt mining town that once had a population of 70,000 people, has been the scene of some of the bloodiest fighting in Moscow's 15-month Ukraine offensive. A day earlier, Wagner and Moscow's regular army claimed to have fully captured Bakhmut, with Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulating them on the alleged conquest. But speaking at the G7 summit in Hiroshima, Zelensky denied Russia's claims. Bakhmut is not occupied by Russia today, he said during a press conference. I cannot share with you the tactical views of our military. The most difficult thing would be if there was some tactical mistake in Bakhmut and our people were surrounded. Sitting next to us, President Joe Biden, Zelensky suggested it would be a Pyrrhic victory for Moscow. You have to understand there is nothing there in Bakhmut, he said on the sidelines of the summit in Japan. Zelensky compared the absolute total destruction in Bakhmut to the devastation in Hiroshima when the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city in 1945. There's absolutely nothing alive there. The Ukrainian army on Sunday said it retained an insignificant part of the city and that soldiers were advancing in from the city's outer limits. We continue to advance on the flanks in the suburbs of Bakhmut, said Oleksandr Sysky, commander of Ukraine's ground forces. Wagner claims no Ukrainian soldiers left. But Yevgeny Prigozhin, the chief of Wagner, whose fighters have spearheaded Russia's advance on Bakhmut, insisted there were no Ukrainian troops there. There is not a single Ukrainian troops there. There's not a single Ukrainian soldier in Bakhmut, as we have stopped taking prisoners, he said in a post on Telegram. There are a huge number of corpses of Ukrainian soldiers. Prigozhin said Zelensky was either not telling the truth or, like many of our own military leaders, simply does not know what is happening on the ground. This is a possibility. On Saturday, he had announced that his fighters had taken full control of Bakhmut. Prigozhin said Wagner would hand over control of the city to the Russian army by May 25. But a spokesperson for Ukraine's eastern grouping of forces, Sergei Sherevatayji, said Ukrainian troops were conducting counterattacks in the city and its surroundings. Russian forces are trying to take the whole city under their control. Our units are holding defense. Several buildings and a number of fortifications in the southwestern part of Bakhmut, he said on national television. Fierce clashes occurred in other eastern cities and towns, including Mariinka and Avdiivka in the Donetsk region, according to a Ukrainian General Staff report, which said Russians conducted 4 missile strikes and 45 airstrikes Sunday. Bakhmut and Mariinka remain at the epicenter of hostilities, the report said. Battle for the town of Bakhmut continues. The loss of Bakhmut would be hugely symbolic for the Ukrainians who had held on for months, ignoring U.S. advice behind the scenes to focus elsewhere. But some analysts have said Ukraine has inflicted heavy losses on Russia in Bakhmut and forced it to commit large resources, potentially weakening its defenses in other parts of the front line. The fall of Bakhmut would allow Moscow to bring home a key victory after a series of humiliating defeats. It would also come before a major counteroffensive that Kiev has been preparing for months. Zelensky himself has warned that the city's loss would open the way for Russian troops to capture more of the Donbass region. Congratulations from Putin. The Russian army released a statement several hours after Prigozhin on Saturday. The liberation of the city of Artyomsk was completed, it said, using the Soviet-era name of Bakhmut. The Kremlin later congratulated both Wagner and the Russian army, who have been at increasing loggerheads during Moscow's offensive. Vladimir Putin congratulated the assault units of Wagner as well as all servicemen of units of the Russian armed forces who provided them with the necessary support and flank cover on the completion of the operation to liberate the city. TASS news agency quoted a Kremlin statement as saying, "The two camps are now awaiting the Ukraine counteroffensive, but Zelensky said recently his army needs more time before launching the assault."